to hit how, especially, the cleanup of the mines, might recover, that section of the river that has been basically a dead zone,
Yeah.
from Silverton down through the canyon section.
And that's exactly what I'm going to speak on. So we're right on the same page, Tom.
Cool.
Okay. I think I just clicked start streaming, so we're gonna get
Are you
going.
sure you did?
Yeah, I did. Which it used to give me an option to start it and then begin live. Anyway, I think we have a few people showing up anyway. So it looks like we got a handful of viewers, more people coming in. So that's all good. So welcome, everyone, to our 2023 beginning of our fly fishing festival for Duranglers. Thanks for coming, and glad y'all could join us to talk about the Animas River and just talk a little update on what's going there with Ty, who is what I thought was different. Now realized he's the TU mining coordinator. It's a national position, so he's got a lot of information on mining, got a lot of information on the Animas, so it's going to be good to talk to him. And then before we get into it, just so you guys know, we have another live stream. You can find it on our website. We're going to do a live streaming fly tying tomorrow with Nick Blanco, also known as Yco Flyco on Instagram. He has some pretty fantastic streamers. He's a really good fly tyer, really going to have some articulate points. So be good to tune in there for any fly tyers out there. And then Saturday, obviously, is our big event. Number one, be at the shop at 8 a.m. And we're going to have 30 swag bags for the first 30 people to show up. So make sure you're there at the shop, 8 a.m. We got stuff going on all day, lots of events with our schedule on our website. So check those out. And at all of our events, we're going to have chances to win prizes, drawings, gear, good stuff. So you should definitely make sure the more events you're going to attend, like this one today, down in the video caption, there's a link down there. You can go ahead and do that. It'll be up after the live stream is ended, but go down there and sign up for drawings. We'll draw from our online participants. So good stuff to win. So make sure you do that. And then one more thing is the IF4, the International Fly Fishing Film Festival, which is new to Durango, is going to be here Saturday, 5 p.m., 8 p.m. All of the proceeds are going to benefit our local Five Rivers Trout Unlimited chapter. So make sure you pick up a ticket either online. We have a link on our website, or you can just come into the shop, pick up a ticket. They're $20 each for the 5 or the 8 o'clock. And I think that about covers it for now. So make sure you stick around, and I'm going to turn it over to Tom and to Ty, and they are going to discuss all that's going on with the Animas. And if you don't know, Tom is a longtime Duranglers owner. Ty is a longtime TU advocate and employee, and got some good information. So here we go. Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you for all that are joining in. Our goal tonight is to try to give a good representation of, what's been going on the Animas, what the future looks like. Having Ty help with this presentation. He is extremely involved in the Superfund site above Silverton, the old mining district, and can inform us on what's been happening and what's going to happen and going into the future, what those things look like. Also want to try to give everybody a sense of, how the river is doing, especially since the 416 fire, which of course, that big fire up Hermosa Creek in 2018 created some havoc for the river. The ash and debris with the rains after the fire on the burn scar. I think the CPW, says probably a minimum of 80% fish kill, very, very significant event. And there's a lot of things going on, to help that recovery. And we want to talk about that recovery, how it's going, and those kind of things. And yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting our spring event. Hope you learn a lot. Hope you have questions, and please feel free to enter questions in at any time. Ty and I are both happy to have a dialogue. We think that's a great way to go. And yeah, Ty, turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Tom, and thanks everyone for being here. Again, my name is Ty Churchwell, and I'm on staff for National Trout Unlimited. I am the mining coordinator and primarily work on federal mining policy in DC, but I am based here in Durango, and we do have a major mining Superfund cleanup going on in our headwaters associated with the Gold King mine. Of course, many people remember the spill in 2015 there, and the Superfund cleanup falls under my portfolio. So I'm going to switch over to a PowerPoint presentation here. And Andy, I'm going to lose sight of everything. So you'll just have to verbally prompt me if something comes up. Well, let's see here. Yeah, there we go. How's that look for you guys?
I see it well.
Okay. Well, if you can, Tom, so can everyone else. So again, I'm going to give my portion of the Animas River update. Bear with me just a sec here. There we go. So as was mentioned, I'm going to talk to you tonight about the major Superfund federal cleanup that's occurring in the headwaters of the Animas River. And the primary objective with that cleanup is to improve water quality. So the Upper Animas River Basin was listed as a Superfund site in 2016. It was actually a year after the Gold King spill. The people of Silverton and Durango and the entire watershed really encouraged our governor to make that request, which he did. And we were approved as a federal Superfund cleanup site. So what's interesting about this cleanup is it's a massive. It's almost the entirety of San Juan County, Colorado. There are 48 individual pollution sources that are part of our cleanup. And you can see them here with these pink dots. And hopefully you can see my cursor okay. But just to put this in perspective, there's downtown Durango, or excuse me, Silverton, right there. This is Mineral Creek, and of course, Highway 550 going up over the top to go to Ouray and Red Mountain Pass. That would be the top of Red Mountain Pass right there. Again, downtown Silverton, here's Cement Creek, and just for perspective, that purple dot right there, that's the Gold King mine, and the Silverton ski area is actually right about there. And then going up this direction, that third sub-watershed, this is the main stem of the Animas going up. So you can see that these 48 sites are spread out all over the county, and obviously any sort of a cleanup over here in this area is not going to impact a fishery over here because all this water flows out and flows downstream through the canyon to Durango. So what I do at this particular Superfund site is I'm the co-coordinator of the community advisory group. And simply put, when the Superfund law was enacted in 1980, they provided a mechanism whereby the local citizens at an impacted area for pollution like this has the opportunity to participate in the Superfund cleanup. I've been involved in water quality discussions up in Silverton now for 16, almost 17 years. And so after we were listed as a Superfund site, myself and a couple of others determined that it was probably in our best interest that we as citizens representing this watershed participate in this cleanup and help advise EPA on the actions. They're coming in cold. They don't know the watershed the way that we do, for those of us who've been really studying this issue for a long time. So it really made sense for us to participate in that. So again, Trout Unlimited, that's part of what I do. It's about 10% of my overall time on a weekly basis. And that's what I do, is coordinate that group. There are 15 of us on this group. We all bring some level of expertise to the table. And in fact, 4 of the people on that committee are representatives of the Durango City Council, La Plata County, San Juan County, and Silverton. So we also have government represented. But I wanted to just make that point that that's the role that we play. This cleanup's not just happening in a vacuum. Trout Unlimited is playing a big role. So with that in mind, it makes sense that we would play a lead role because this is a trout fishery recovery project. It really is. And what I find really interesting, there's about 1,300 Superfund sites in the country, and they are developed in situations where you have toxic pollution that has impacts to human health. Of all the Superfund sites, really that's the driver, is that we have a human health risk where the EPA needs to clean up a site from pollution because humans are being impacted. But ours is the one and only one in the country that is entirely environmental in nature. There really are no human health risks. This project, this cleanup, is solely for the purpose of improving water quality. And the trout are the indicator of the problem because of their lack of existence. And an indicator of our success will be the recovery of trout. So we've got about 60 miles of trout water up there that's been lost to pollution from all of these mines up there. And if you look at this map, this study was done in 2016 at the very beginning of our process, just to get a baseline of where fish were and are not as we begin our process of cleaning up these mines. So again, just to put this in perspective, downtown Silverton would be right there where my cursor is. Again, there's Mineral Creek and Red Mountain Pass, Cement Creek, and the main stem of the Animas. You can see that everywhere where there are red, we have an absence of trout, or at a minimum, a very, very, very low population. Everywhere that we see red there, really for all intents and purposes, there are not trout to speak of. Anywhere where we have yellow, that is water quality that's not horrible, that there are some existing trout in there, but their numbers are scant at best, but it's not a non-existent fishery. And then anywhere where you see green, that's where we actually today currently do have existing good fisheries up there. So I'll make note of those. Again, with my cursor, this is South Mineral Creek going up this direction. We got pretty good water quality in there. This is a pretty darn good little fishery in here for brook trout. And then from downtown Silverton, as you go upriver, the main stem of the Animas, this is an excellent brook trout fishery. It really, really is. This is Cunningham Creek right here. Cunningham Creek is has a population of Colorado River cutthroats. And if you're looking to go target those fish and you don't want to go to Hermosa, there is another choice. So anyway, this just sort of shows the extent of the problem that we have up there and how much we have to improve. Obviously, this is the main stem of the Animas going downriver after all these waters have come together in Silverton. That's the canyon going down to Durango. Andy, any questions at all?
No questions as of yet, but feel free to ask anyone. You can type in the chat on the side of the YouTube video.
I do have a question if you can hear me.
Yes, please.
So from the town of Silverton on the main stem of the Animas, how far downstream are we in the red, so to speak?
Yeah. You know what? If you'll hold off on that, I have a slide that's going to cover that stretch specifically, and that will answer that question.
Perfect. Thanks.
Very good. Obviously, since I'm back here, I'll just say that any improvement that we make in the watershed with water quality, that all will present itself downstream for us down here in town. It will make a difference all the way down here. So one of the first things that we did with our process, our Superfund cleanup process, was to really identify what our goals and our priorities were. And we have, in fact, adopted a set of priority reaches. In other words, the sections of river that we really want to impact, and they are rated. And the number one stretch that we want to impact is that stretch down in the canyon below Silverton and heading down towards Durango. Again, that used to be a really great fishery, and we've lost it through the years, and we're really going to prioritize to getting that back. You'll notice that all four of these priority areas correlate exactly with this map right here where we have existing trout fisheries. So the idea there, of course, is to improve the fisheries that already exist, not only just improve the numbers of fish per mile, but also the species that can populate those areas because of improved water quality. And that's our primary objectives here. So you can see all four of those primary reaches, and they correspond exactly to where existing fisheries are today. So let's talk about that priority reach number one. And Tom, this is what you were asking about. Again, any water quality improvements that we gain in the upper part of the watershed will present themselves down through this stretch of water. You know, on that last map, we have it marked as red, but it is not a non-existent fishery. It is just so low in numbers that it's just, that's what we want to get back. That's such a special stretch of river, and to be able to access it from the train is such an awesome amenity for locals and tourists alike. But these numbers that I have up on the screen here, these are the last survey numbers that Parks and Wildlife did in 2020 at Elk Park, which is roughly, call it 5 miles downriver from Silverton. The fish counts were about 37 fish per mile. Those were almost entirely all brookies. Going down to Cascade Creek, where we really start to see some dilution of the Animas from the other creeks that are feeding in on its course downstream to Durango. The fish numbers go up pretty good there, still pretty low at 116 fish per mile down at Cascade Creek. The next surveys that are done are down in the Durango reach, and I think that's part of what Tom will talk about when he gets to his section. Priority reach number 2 is the main stem of the Animas from Howardsville down. Well, it's actually further up from Howardsville around Minnie and Maggie Gulch. But that reach runs down to the confluence of Cement Creek. Basically, as soon as Cement Creek feeds into the Animas right there in downtown Silverton, that's where the fishery gets lost because that's where the worst water quality is. But this stretch in Howardsville, awesome fishery. I love to take friends up there to fish it because we tend to focus so much on the bigger fish down here in Durango, but what an awesome brook trout fishery up there. Parks and Wildlife says there's about 1,000 fish per mile, which is a pretty darn good number, and they're almost entirely brookies. Every once in a while you'll see a rainbow in there, but really brookies are the only ones that can tolerate that impaired water quality up there. But of note, Parks and Wildlife did stock a bunch of fish up there last summer in 2022. They brought in almost 1,100 rainbows, all of them catchable size, so right around that 10-inch size, and they were stocked into this stretch of the Animas. We'll see how well that those fish do. They don't quite tolerate the heavy metals the way the brookies are, but we're pretty confident that those will become resident rainbows up there. And again, Cunningham Creek is part of this stretch of water, if you will, and it's a native cutthroat stronghold. South Mineral Creek, it's a limited brook trout fishery, but we really only have one mine up there that's causing any water quality problems, and that's the photo there of the Bandora mine. There is so much natural loading of heavy metals in this reach of water that there's honestly not a lot that we can do to improve water quality through this stretch. We can do something with one particular mine, this particular mine, but overall it's not going to make such a large improvement in this reach that we're ever going to get much better of a fishery that exists today. But it is a fishery. If you happen to be up around South Mineral Creek, really get a fly rod out. It's there's quite a few brookies in there. And then lastly, priority reach number 4. This is really kind of special. In 2016, when EPA and other contractors performed the initial studies on where the trout were, they discovered brook trout up around Chattanooga. that hadn't existed there in probably 100 years, if not longer. There's been dozens of cleanup projects in the Mineral Creek watershed over the last 20 to 30 years by various entities, and it's resulted in water quality improvements that have created a situation where we have about a mile stretch of Mineral Creek that didn't used to have brookies that now does. And so that's a measure that we're doing something right up there, that's for sure. So the one thing that we did here recently, in fact, this last year, there did not used to be an aquatic life water quality standard for this stretch of water because there was no aquatic life. So we went and presented the data to the state of Colorado, and they now have adopted a water quality standard for this reach of water that's protective of those trout that are now existent in there. So that was a really, really big win, and we're just tickled to see a stretch of water up there containing a trout that didn't used to. So really that's what I have in terms of the fishery data on what we're doing in the Superfund cleanup. But let me spend just a moment on some of our accomplishments. First and foremost, the Superfund process is a long bureaucratic process. It just is, and it is the only tool at our disposal to address these mines. So unfortunately, it's the course we have to go. So I would just ask of all locals to be really patient with us. It's going to take quite a number of years yet before we really start to see some major improvements. But there are some things that we've accomplished. So I know I have a screen up here on Lightner Creek, but bear with me. I just want to talk about these real quick. First of all, 6 weeks after the Gold King spill, a wastewater treatment facility was built at the Gold King. And they have been treating every single drop of water from the Gold King ever since. And we have, in fact, seen measurable water quality improvements downstream of Silverton because of that water treatment. That's ongoing, and it will continue to be ongoing. One of the issues that we have is we need to deal with waste. What are we going to do with the waste rock that we move? What are we going to do with the waste from the wastewater treatment facility, et cetera? And so before we could do a lot of work up there, we had to figure out where to put waste. And we now have a place to do it. It's the Mayflower Tailing Ponds just upriver from Silverton, only about 2 miles out of town. On the left side of the Animas there, as you're heading up the Animas, you see those big old historic piles of waste rock. Those are now going to become our permanent repository going forward, and construction will begin this summer, and we'll start putting material in there in 2024. So with that behind us, we can now start to make some other decisions about what's going on up there. All of the legal settlements have been resolved. There is no more legal liability by anyone in that watershed. All of the issues relating with the Gold King spill and the liabilities of the EPA, they've all been settled. So there is no more money and time to be spent on attorneys. Now we can actually get to work, and we know how much money we have to work with. And that number is right around $90 million. That is sitting in the bank for only our Superfund site. That's the pot of money we have to resolve every issue that we have here. The studies up there are largely done. We don't have the details of exactly what will happen long term, but right now what we're discussing, again, now that we have a repository for waste, we're going to start talking real solid details about how much water treatment is going to occur in the Upper Animas and exactly where that water treatment is going to occur. It likely will occur again up there near the Gold King. Most of our water quality problems emanate from the Cement Creek watershed, and so very, very likely that we'll have a major, large wastewater treatment facility up there that'll treat just darn near everything that comes out of that watershed. And that will make, by doing that alone, we will accomplish about 80% of our water quality objectives. So that's where we are with that. Again, bear with us. It's going to be a long process, but we're going to get there. And I promise our kids are going to have a clean watershed and free of minerals, at least in the way that they are today. So I'll pause there again real quick, Andy, just in case there's questions before I move on to 2 more quick slides. Okay. 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 Very good. Two more slides, and then again, I can always go back to those maps if we need to. So this is moving a little bit further downstream right here in downtown Durango, if you will, Lightner Creek. And in the last 15, 20 years, we have seen the sediment emanating from Lightner Creek into the Animas right there just upriver of the Whitewater Park just has increased dramatically between the development of the tech center and the Twin Buttes area and all the other new infrastructure and development that's going on in the last 20 years. We now have a sediment issue from Lightner Creek that didn't used to exist. And it's become worse. And just last summer in particular, while we can all be grateful for the summer rains that really kept the Animas cool and full of water all year, it caused some sedimentation issues out of Lightner Creek, and it's really gotten to be a problem. And so some of our members of Trout Unlimited and downstream property owners approached us and said, guys, we got to do something about this. Imagine if you owned one of those beautiful homes downriver or fish frequently in the public water downriver, including the Southern Ute water, and you just see this sediment coming through and smothering the bottom. And these property owners reached out to us and said, really, we need to do something about it. And we totally agreed with them. And so we put together a letter that described the problem and some mitigation ideas that could be addressed. And we sent this letter around to darn near every river sort of stakeholder, if you will, in the Durango area and asked them to sign on to the letter. And we got about a dozen downstream property owners to sign the letter. Both the fly shops in town signed the letter. Thank you, Duranglers, for that. Of course, the Four Corners River Sports signed the letter. All the outfitters, the guides, the rafting outfitters, the fly fishing outfitters in town, they signed the letter. And we presented it to City Council about a week and a half ago, and really just wanted to bring the Durango, river recreation and retailers and outfitters community together along with the property owners and say to the city, we want to address this problem. We want you to understand how big of a deal this is, and we want to work with you to resolve it. So I'll just give a shout out to Tom Knopick, who showed up at the city council meeting and spoke on behalf of the angling community in his store, and I spoke as well. And I don't have exact next steps, but we have at a minimum put this in front of city council, and we're also going to be talking with La Plata Board of County Commissioners. So sort of a new campaign, if you will, that we're working on here locally. But again, this is important to address, in my opinion, as are the metals. One last thing, I'll try to be brief. This is actually the first time I think I've gone public with this little bit of information, but I think you're going to find it really, really awesome. Trout Unlimited was notified about a year and a half ago of a water right that was for sale at the very, very, very top of the Animas River. And it was a trans-basin water right that was directing water from the Animas side over to the Uncompahgre riverside. And that water was being lost from our watershed and going over to the Uray side and feeding hay fields over around Montrose or something. So again, the owner of this water right approached BLM about wanting to sell it. BLM came to me and they said, hey, we have an opportunity here to get some water back on the Animas side. Are you guys interested? And we immediately said yes. And so over the last year and a half, we've gotten an appraisal. We've gotten the water attorneys involved, of course, because you can't do these sorts of things without them. And we have negotiated a price with the property owner and submitted an offer, and it has been accepted. So there are still some details to work out, and actually what's going to happen. Originally, Trout Unlimited was going to buy the water right, and we would have turned around and immediately donated it to the Colorado Water Conservation Board as an in-stream flow. In other words, it would just remain in the river to do what it does for a river, which is feed our trout. But ultimately what happened is BLM actually had some money available that we didn't have. And the way it's probably going to work out now, BLM will end up being the purchaser of the water right. We won't have to do any fundraising around this. They had some monies available through their federal appropriations, and they're going to buy the water right, and they will be the ones that will donate it back to the state for in-stream flow. So again, this isn't done deal just yet, but everything is on track to make this purchase final here in maybe the next few months. At some point, we'll have to get in there, of course, and move some water around. And I'm going to use my cursor here and just show you. Here's the main, this is called Burroughs Gulch, Burroughs Creek coming down right here. And it comes down, and the water normally would spill this way and go into the Animas. And they've built a diversion right here and a ditch. And now that water transects this hillside. It goes right over here, and this is the top of the pass. And from that point off to the right, that's the Uncompahgre. So that's where the water's going now. We're going to take this diversion ditch out of here and redirect that flow. It'll come back into the Animas. It's about 11 gallons per minute as a water right. And of course, the reason for doing this is it increases the base flow in the Animas by 11 gallons per minute, and it provides more dilution water, of course, for the pollution that we have from the heavy metals. So I hadn't told anybody that yet, and we will go public with more information about it with our partners at BLM sometime in the future, but that won't take place until we've actually all of us signed on the dotted line. But everything's looking really good for this to go through, and at a minimum, we have a deal with the seller, and we have money in place. And so I see no reason why this isn't going to go through. And that is about all I have, other than I will just point to the special edition Trout Unlimited Animas Reel by Ross Reels over in Montrose. If you wonder how it is that Trout Unlimited funds my time and all the work that myself and the Trout Unlimited team does in the Animas Basin, is through things like this. I had approached the owners of Ross Reels about donating a portion of the proceeds from their Animas Reels to help us pay for all of this work. And they said, we'll do you one better. We're going to let you design a reel, and we're going to sell them as a special edition reel. And all those proceeds come directly into Trout Unlimited's coffers, and specifically into my work. I'm the only one who gets to spend that money, and that gets spent in the Animas. So I'm really grateful to Ross Reels for doing that. And then, of course, grateful to the retailers out there like Duranglers who do sell these when they come out. So that's what I have. Thank you all for listening. I know that was a lot, but I've done my best to cover the upper part of the watershed, and I'll hand this off to Tom and let him speak maybe more about the lower part of the watershed.
Well, great. And thanks, Ty. Appreciate all that information. Big time. Andy, any questions that we know of yet?
No, I'm not seeing any questions, but feel free, anyone, to, on YouTube here, type in the comments if you have any questions. There's a little chat on the right side, I think, of your screen there, and you can ask anything of Ty or of Tom. I think Tom's gonna address a little bit of the in town and below what Ty was talking about, but feel free to ask any questions about the entire drainage. Yeah.
So I don't know if I want to get real deep into this, but Ty, just kind of, the history of the Animas. Duranglers opened in 1983. When we got here, they were still actively mining up in Silverton. And in the late 80s, I know that there were some very significant events, up in the mining district with some spills that would make the Gold King mine spill look like nothing. And so bottom line is, the water quality and the health of the Animas River to support fish back in, the mid 1980s was not good. It was worse than it is today. Mm-hmm. And then there were a series of events. To me, it's been kind of like a roller coaster ride, with the Animas, water quality and the fishery, even to the point of flourishing and then declining again. And I don't necessarily want to get deep into the history, but if there's anything there that you wanted to kind of talk about, but I know for a fact, when you presented that slide there, at fish per mile, where Cascade Creek comes in of, I think you said the slide said 116 fish per mile. We, Duranglers, as a fundraiser for Big Brothers Big Sisters, used to use that section of the river for a tournament to raise money for that, for Big Brothers Big Sisters. And literally I want to say more like the early 2000s, my timing might be a little off, but we might have 2 anglers in a day that would catch 80 to 90 fish up there on the Animas River, just to kind of put what this fishery could be. And then, and I think that was just on the front side of that river kind of recovering. And then some things happened that, decreased, the water quality, and, we've kind of plummeted. So, good and bad. The potential up there, I think, is insanely good. Do those dates kind of make sense to you, Ty, with some of the things that happen?
It does. And again, without going into details, 2 points. Bulkheads were put into the American Tunnel, and the wastewater treatment facility that was cleaning all the water coming out of not the Gold King, but the Sunnyside mine pool was being treated. So they took the wastewater treatment facility offline, they plugged the mountain, and water started coming out different places, including the Gold King, and it ultimately played a role in that spill. So you're correct. And they took the wastewater treatment facility offline in 2001.
So, the Animas River of Lost Souls, wrong one, right?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. That was the Dolores, actually, the River of Lost Souls.
No,
But,
I think the Animus actually is.
Animus.
Or something about souls in purgatory or something like that.
Okay. I'm old, I forget stuff. But so the Animus has had lots of hurdles, if you will, naturally, and the mining, and not the only one. In 2002, we had the Missionary Ridge fire, which was a massive fire in the Animas drainage. And as we typically see when we have these big fires, and then the heavy rains that eventually will happen on those burn scars, can create havoc for the river and the fishery. And then more recently, the 416 fire, in 2018. That fire, mostly up Hermosa Creek. When the rains came in the fall, created major problems, and the number that I hear from CPW is as much, if not more, than an 80% fish kill. Devastating to the fishery at that point. And kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what has happened, since then. Here we're almost 5 years past, that event. And what CPW, how they're trying to manage that, and just kind of where we think we are. Obviously, these kind of recoveries take time, but they do happen. So, and Ty, I know that you talk with Jim White with CPW, so if you have any additional information, or if maybe what I'm talking isn't quite what you've heard, please kind of,
You bet.
let me know. And, so CPW, I think's, main objective to try to recover the fishery, after the fish kill from the 416 fire, was mostly to first try to recover the rainbow population. I mean, brown trout tend to be much more predatory. So trying to establish a rainbow population, recovery, and then, kind of on the backside, doing what may be needed to, help the brown trout. Since at least down here in the town reach and south of town, down to the state line is mostly rainbows and browns. They primarily, were stocking, fingerling rainbows, and specifically a fish known as the Gunnison River rainbow, which, the river has to deal with not only, acid mine drainage, events after fires, but also the whirling disease issue, which these Gunnison River fish are a naturally resistant fish to whirling disease. And so after a number of years, stocking a different fish in the Animas before the 416 fire, they, which didn't do well, which was an engineered fish to be resistant to WD called a Hofer cross. They found that these rainbows in the Gunnison River drainage had actually on their own developed some natural resistancy. So the hatcheries in Colorado are producing these fish, and they started putting them into the Animas. And this fish seems to do much better in the Animas than the Hofer cross does. The Animas is not maybe the most friendly place for a rainbow to live, but these Gunnison fish seem to be doing pretty good. And my understanding is that since the 416 fire, those are, the fish that are being stocked by CPW in the Animas River. Is that kind of the way you understand it, Ty?
Exactly.
And I think those of us that fish the river, at least at Duranglers, have felt, we like this particular strain of fish. It seems to do well in the Animas. It, seems to be more natural, if you will, a little more wild than some of these other engineered fish. And we're excited about this fish being in the river. And I don't know if numbers really mean a lot, but I know that, 2018 was the fire, the 416 fire. And, they stocked these Gunnison River fish, to the tune of almost 23,000. And in 2020, they stocked, over 27,000 of these fish. And in 2021, to the tune of over 46,000. So they've been putting a lot of fish in the river. And I believe that we're seeing, that population recover. Then at the same time, as you fish that river, if you fish it, sometimes you can be on the river and you're very optimistic about how things are. You have a day where you find, good quality fish, and then other days where you don't, which, to be honest, that's the way the Animas has always been. It's a very, very, very temperamental fishery. So anybody that's listening that, you go out to the Animas and you have a less than ideal day, you're not the only one. We all have those days. That's just the way the Animas is. The CPW has really been working hard, to try to, get the populations kind of back up to where they were. And not to jump around too much, but one of the things that is very, very, very encouraging on the Animas is that the fish surveys show that the populations of sculpin minnow, which is one of the prime food sources, especially for larger fish, including rainbows, but maybe more so even for browns, was the surveys show that those populations were devastated, in the aftermath of the 416, but they have rebounded extremely, extremely well. So that is a ton of good news, for the Animas River. And CPW, their program on the Animas as far as, surveying the fish populations and doing population estimates, they do those every 2 years. The last one was in 2021. And so, the 2021 numbers, which I'll talk a little bit about here in a second, but they didn't do one in 2022, which is common. That's, they do every other year. So we'll have another population estimate here in 2023. And to me, I think that 2023, population estimate is going to be very telling on exactly how we're doing as far as the recovery on the Animas. And I was thinking about putting this up on the screen, but the numbers are, the graphs are so small, I just decided to just kind of talk about it. But in the, 2021 survey for the Animas River, and this is mostly through the town reach, which I think equates very good to the water, down below town through private, but also through the Southern Ute tribal water, they found a lot of fish. But most of them are small. Most of these are probably fish that had been stocked, and the 2021 survey, there were very few fish that were surveyed over 16 inches. And yes, we all know this takes time. It's not like all of a sudden after a big massive event like this fire that you're going to have, your 18, 20-inch fish. It takes time. And they had lots of small fish that were surveyed. The number of fish that were kind of those medium-sized guys that are starting to get a little bit more like quality fish, let's call them, 11 to 15-inch fish, they were there in respectable numbers, but not in, big numbers. And again, I think that's to be somewhat expected, only a few years after the event. So in my talking with Jim White, fishery biologist with CPW here in Durango, is that, this survey that'll come up, in 2023 will be very telling on how that fishery is recruiting these fish, the fingerlings that they're putting in, into more quality fish. So those 12 to 15, 16-inch fish hopefully are doing well, and we'll start to see a lot more of these 16, 18-inch fish, and hopefully bigger too. I mean, not that there aren't, big rainbows in the river right now. Just to me and my personal observation, it'll be nice to see more of them. And there's been a lot of smaller fish, but getting them recruited into more quality fish obviously takes time. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what this survey, looks like in 2023. There's some people I know, local anglers, that feel like, the Animas is not the best, easiest river for a fish to live in, especially down at these lower elevations, especially with the kind of years we have with drought, etc. But at the same time, a lot of people feel like, well, why put so much effort into recovering the rainbows first before you try to recover, the brown trout? Some people feel like the brown trout maybe is a better fish for this river and for this environment. And in my talks with Jim White, it's like, okay, we'll see, especially with this 2023 survey that will come up, we'll get a much, much better idea if those rainbows are getting recruited. And, Jim mentioned to me, if the numbers don't kind of show, maybe there's a different tack that CPW will take, and maybe, work a little harder to recover those brown trout. Ty, anything to add to any of that?
Yeah, 2 quick points. The Southern Utes have been pretty aggressive with their brown trout stocking since the fire. So even if CPW isn't doing it, they are. And to your point, they actually may be a better species of fish down there for that stretch of water anyway. The other thing is, when you mentioned the sculpin recovery, I would point out that the macroinvertebrate studies that have been done since the 416 fire are really, really encouraging that the insects recovered really, really quickly. I think all of us are still seeing salmon flies on the Animas since the fire, and that's a really good indicator that bugs are on the recovery. But the food is there, as I understand from certainly from the studies that Scott Roberts at Mountain Studies Institute has done. The food's there for them.
So, I mean, I see a lot of good news. I mean, bottom line is, where are we at with the recovery? We're not back to where we were, before the 416 fire. But, in the big picture, I see a really, really bright future for the Animas. All those things, in combination with, Ty's effort and all the efforts up, above Silverton, with the mine issues, and down here, another, I think, bright point that in that meeting, Ty, that was presented a couple nights ago, Scott with Mountain Studies Institute, I think also presented, some numbers about our water treatment plant here in Durango and how it has improved water quality. The water quality coming out of our water treatment plant in Durango, I believe, for a long time has been below EPA standards. I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know, Ty, if you can speak on that, but I think what I had heard is, the older plant just wasn't being able to keep up, and that's part of the reason that there was funding for that new facility. And what I saw, the Mountain Studies Institute talked about some water quality studies that they did, before, the new plant and after the refit, that there was a 90% decrease in phosphorus, a 58% decrease in nitrogen, and a 67% decrease in E. coli, which those numbers are pretty impressive, and, somebody might say, well, really, what does that mean for the fishery? A lot of good things. What we typically have had, and I'm sure they'll continue to some extent, but hopefully not as much as in the past, on the Animas River, below the water treatment plant, with especially the nitrogen, creates algae blooms. And, algae blooms, and reduced dissolved oxygen, they're very harmful for aquatic life, especially the bugs, and the bugs are the food for the fish. So, we would, especially in our dry years, see very significant algae blooms, basically starting below where the water treatment water came back into the Animas, and increasingly worse as you go downriver. And the reason it gets worse downriver is because as the Animas water goes downstream, there's more and more water diverted into irrigation ditches, and that less volume of water heats up quicker. So on drought years, these algae blooms have been very, very significant. So I'm optimistic that the new water treatment plant will also be a very, very good thing for the health of the river and the water quality.
Got a question for you. Will says, thanks for bringing up Lightner Creek. Can you comment on what's in the debris, and do you know if it's impacting the aquatic insect life?
And are we talking about the Lightner Creek debris?
Lightner, yep.
Yeah, it's really, really fine particles of Mancus shale. It's smaller than a grain of sand. It's silt that is just so easily mobilized anytime there's any current or any water movement at all. These tiny, tiny particles of sediment get mobilized and pushed downstream. And the issue with sediment is, from my perspective, it's two. One, it basically just muddies up the bottom of the river. That sediment settles out and it fills all the little tiny pore spaces in the cobble, in the sand, and the rocks in the bottom of the river. And if that's where the bugs live, that's where the juvenile bugs reside, is in that cobble. That's where the cobble where the fish spawn. And so the sediment fills those pore spaces and just clogs up the bottom of the river. The other issue from an angler standpoint is trout need to be able to see to feed. And when those big flushes of dirty water come down, it effectively makes the Animas unfishable, sometimes for days on end, if not weeks. And here recently, because the water's just so dirty, the fish can't feed, they can't see. And it just makes it, you can't even get out there and fish.
Yeah.
Andy, you seen any other questions?
I'm just going to put this out there that we don't have a whole lot of time left, and we have a little bit of a delay on our stream, so I'm just putting it out for people to ask questions when they hear me say this right now. I have a question, though, and kind of tailing off of that with Lightner Creek. With the snowpack this year, I know we got kind of two different angles of that water coming in, one from the main stem, one from Lightner. I guess just, do you think that's going to be a positive for Lightner Creek and maybe even kind of by that skate park, a little bit of that sediment built up?
Oh, it's gonna, as far as, the amount of sediment, from Lightner Creek, and we also have that problem up by the skate park coming off the hogback. The silt, and sediment load that's actually sitting on the bottom of the river is most likely going to get, cleaned up, and that's a good thing in my perspective. And hopefully we'll have better flows throughout the course of the summer and into the fall. And hopefully we do get our summer rains, because we need them as well. We have enough volume in the Animas when we do get these events, that we have enough energy to transport those sediments, and maybe we'll have an actual year where temperatures aren't pushing into the 70 degrees, water temperatures on the Animas, and that, we actually give, the river, the aquatic insects, as well as, the fish, a better chance to prosper this year, because those drought years are really tough. I mean, we all know it. When there's, when we in the shop, have to tell people, please don't fish the Animas after noon. The water temperature is getting too high. CPW, puts voluntary, closures at certain times of the day, again, because of water quality. Those are all things that give, are detriments to that trout fishery, as much as all these other things, just on a more of an annual basis than a, year round, year after year basis. So, I'm very optimistic about, where the Animas is heading, not just in the next 12 months, but, in the long run. We've got a lot of really good things going on. And then as an angler, I'm out there, fishing in the winter, and some days it's like, oh gosh, saw some really quality fish. This is nice. I'm very optimistic. And then the next time you go out, hey, not so good. But I think we still have to be patient. We're not quite 5 years into it. And I think we're on the right path. And I think the future is really bright.
I concur.
I agree. And so got another question from Beth. Is the Animas still considered gold medal waters?
I'll take that. I'll take that if you don't mind, Ty. My understanding, and is yes, it is still under CPW gold medal status. Does the Animas River gold medal stretch meet the criteria as of right now today for gold medal status? I don't believe it does. But I think the idea, is not for CPW to take that designation away, because it most likely will, and hopefully sooner than later, again, meet that. And the my understanding of gold medal status, it's put on rivers in the state of Colorado by CPW that have the ability to produce, good numbers of fish, but more importantly, or I said not say and more importantly, but also quality fish. So there's two criteria that a stretch of water must meet to be gold medal in Colorado. It's pounds of fish per surface acre. That's just the overall biomass of fish. And honestly, I can't quote you exactly what that is, but it means that it can have a lot of biomass of fish per surface acre. And then the second part is X number of fish per surface acre must be quality fish, which I think are defined by 14 inches or bigger. I think right now, in that survey that was done in 2021, I think the river met the biomass amount, but it didn't have the number of quality fish to be gold medal. So, but it will again, for sure.
Yeah, it's not, from my understanding, it's not like it can come and go, as it takes a long time to do that survey.
They don't just take the designation away because of a natural fire event.
Yeah.
You don't. They account for that. Nature's nature, and it did what it did when a fire happened, and it will recover. But they don't just take the designation away. And Tom, I think your numbers were right on the money. That's what I understand as well.
Another question, is CPW stocking any other species in the Animas?
Besides rainbows and browns?
No.
They are stocking browns too. Even in that I was quoting some of the numbers from 2019, 2020, 2021. I just mentioned that they were stocking rainbows, and that their goal was to try to recover the rainbow fishery before they really, tried to enhance the brown trout fishery. They were stocking, I think, on all of those years some brown trout as well, fingerlings.
I think they dumped some of their cutthroat in there at one point in the last year or so, but it wasn't a big.
They did do a cutthroat stocking, which
I don't think it lasted.
So in 2019, they stocked 1,269 10-inch cutthroats.
But that was in town, right?
Yes. Most of the stocking that CPW does on the Animas is, through town. And then, of course, the southern Utes, down on the tribal water, do stocking as well. The cutthroat thing, that's not the best fish for the Animas. And I never really, understood why that was. I think that they must have just had some fish that needed to go to a river.
Sure.
My guess.
And I know you guys have talked to probably Mountain Studies Institute more than I have. Have they surveyed any bugs that are not often seen or anglers don't typically think of on the Animas?
I might be able to speak to that. No, it's the usual suspects. It's lots of midges, lots of caddis, of course, a good mayfly population. The usual suspects. But Scott is always very excited when he rolls a rock over and finds one of those big salmon fly larvae. So they were there, and those, for me, that's a really good indicator that our water quality is improving if that bug exists.
I feel like I've seen maybe 2 yellow sallies.
Right.
Even a couple of years ago, it seemed like, my observations were a few more of the yellow sallies and some of the other species of stoneflies. But then, the last year, didn't see them. Maybe I wasn't on the water as much. It's hard to kind of really know that. I am disappointed at times about our blue-winged olive mayflies. Over the last couple of years, I feel at times that maybe they're gaining some more traction, but I would like to see more. I hope to see more insect activity, and it's part of the process too. we have to be patient. And, I can remember other times on the Animas where the insect activity was definitely stronger. And I'm optimistic that it will be, but I just don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah. I don't think any other questions other than probably a good one for everyone. Is there any actionable items or any actionable things anglers can do to just help the Animas? It's a big one.
I get so focused at that high level stuff, I don't think often about what can the average guy do. And in terms of the work I do upriver, there wouldn't be really, unfortunately. So I'll defer to Tom on that.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got a great answer. I mean, but just be involved. I mean, Trout Unlimited is an organization dedicated to, conserving cold water resources. I mean, not a bad place to start. And they can always, use help and funds, and there's a lot of good things. And I'm sure there's other good conservation organizations too. But yeah, being involved, I guess.
For sure. And did you have any slides you wanted to show, Tom?
Oh gosh, I might as well show a couple. So I'm going to show just a handful of photographs of fish that have been caught on the Animas River, last fall and through the winter. Just kind of, we would all like to see more quality fish in the river, and we'll see them. Just have to be patient. Just maybe not as many as we want right now. But what do I need to do here, Andy? Do I need
just
to
go to your screen share and pop open those photos?
Oh, there it is, right down there, the old green button. And so let's do something like this. Is there a fish on the screen?
Not yet.
Oh, I got to hit that, don't I? Technical difficulties there, Andy.
It's all good. I think
It says desktop, but it won't let me.
double check here. See if you can do it now.
Nope.
Oh, there it is.
Maybe
it's,
not.
It's going. Tom can now pick. Yep, there we go. We're good to go.
Okay. So I mean, that fish was a nice fish. I think that was last December, and I was on the wrong side of that photograph.
That's a solid fish.
And these are all town fish. This was the same day. I mean, not nearly as big a fish, but boy, to me, seeing a fish like that, sure makes you feel good about, the Animas and its potential and its recovery.
Absolutely.
This was last January.
Oh yeah.
Big old brown. And yeah, most of my photos are browns. It seems like at least this winter, there were more bigger browns caught. It's not like there were tons of them, and I think the rainbows are coming. This was a fish that was actually, I said fall. This was a fish that was caught down below town last summer. And that was last fall. Nice
Yeah,
fish.
I think you're right. Like almost fall into the winter.
So, I mean, the Animas was always known for big fish, I mean, and not always a lot of them. You'd have to pay your dues, but they're in there, and, and they're growing and they're getting bigger. This is a fish that, I caught, last, I think it was December, and I mean, as we can recruit more of those smaller rainbows into those guys, the future's bright.
For sure. Sweet. Let me double check. I don't know if we have any other questions. Nope. Looks like good. A lot of people saying thanks for everything. It was pretty informative. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Ty. Can't appreciate your participation enough.
Well, I can't do the work I do without you guys' help and partnership on everything I do. So thank you guys, and really have a great event, and I'll see you guys over the weekend.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
All right. Thank you guys. And you guys can sign off. I'm going to sign off here in 1 second.
Okay. Thanks, you guys. I'll buzz out of here. Really, really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Okay. Thanks, Andy.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you for being here.
You bet.
Thanks, everybody that's watching.
Yep. Thank you guys. So thanks for everyone, you all who were watching here. Let me just double check this. There we go. So yeah, thank you guys all for watching. We appreciate it. There's some good fish to be caught on the Animas. And so tomorrow, same time on our other live YouTube link, which you can find at the schedule on our website. Thank you guys. Just reading these comments. Tomorrow night at same time, 6 p.m., we are going to do a tying demo. Could be some streamers with Wyco Flyco, also known as Nick Blanco. And then again, Saturday at 8 a.m. I'm losing it. 8 a.m. And make sure you sign up for our giveaways on this. There should be below this video on the caption in the video a link to sign up for our giveaways, and you'll be entered into our grand prize drawings, which include a guided trip, among other cool things. And you can sign up there and sign up tomorrow as well. And then we'll have lots of giveaways on Saturday. So we look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow night. And then at the shop, 8 a.m., we got 30 pretty cool swag bags full of stuff to give away for the first 30 people, and then giveaways throughout the rest of the day. Some good promos, deals, lots of rods and gear to demo and check out, and I'm excited to cast a few rods. So look forward to seeing you all there, and you guys all have a wonderful evening. It is snowing a little bit out, so that's going to help the Animas. You guys take care. Yep. Thank you, Tom.